All right, so we got our next guest of the day. We got Cam. Cam, how you doing?
I am fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So first of all, I just want to start it off by asking a question I ask every guest. What is one thing you can tell us about yourself?
One thing, I am a filmmaker, writer, musician. I do a lot of work for the Cincinnati Reds and the Reds Hall of Fame. Produce soundtracks from films, things of that nature. That's more than one thing I know, but yeah. So I'm basically a filmmaker, writer, musician, human being.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. So for all viewers who do not know, what kind of films have you produced, or what kind of films have you put out there, I guess?
Well, I do a lot of course, for the Cincinnati Reds. I do a lot of baseball films. That's my bread and butter. I do documentaries. A lot of the films, if you go to the Reds Hall of Fame Museum, you'll see that there is a lot of video and audio in there, and I've been doing that for 22 years or so. But I also do other films and produce films and commercials and awards shows and things like that, kind of to pay the bills. But my relationship with the Reds is probably what I'm most known for. So that's been where and not only the films, but the music too. That's one of the great things is I get to do music, right? So I get to compose the music for my films, and some of them are fiction, some of them are for foreign films. I do a lot of soundtracks for foreign films. It's a great life. I mean, every day I wake up, I get to create, so you can't beat that, right?
Yeah, man. So, how long have you been with Cincinnati Reds, real quick? How long have you
Uh,
been with them?
Well, I used to be full time with the Reds in 2004, so really almost 20 years being with them. But I kind of branched out and did my own thing with K Miller Films, which is my own company. But they kept me on as the number one client, right? So my number one client's the Reds. So I mean, again, it's just growing up a Reds fan. It's a pinch yourself kind of thing, right? You just don't expect that when you're growing up to be able to work for your hometown team. So it's been great.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned growing up as a Reds baseball fan. What do you think of the Reds season so far?
I think they're surprising some people. I sometimes I have to watch what I say because I get so aggravated and I say things on the Twitter that I probably shouldn't because I'm so passionate about them. But and of course, working for them, you kind of got to watch what you say. But I think that the thing is that they're a young team and they're going to have some ups and downs. And baseball is just a different beast these days. It's a different game. It's just such a different thing, and it's easy to get down on a lot of these guys because they're young, and it's like I said, it's just a different game. I try to stay positive, and I try to share that with my followers on Twitter. Just stay positive and stay the course. That it's going to be fine. The big red machine days will never come back, but at least we're going to have some competitive teams here. It looks like in the next few years. So, gotta love it, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah, obviously the Reds with Jonathan India and Farley, obviously they have a bright future ahead of them. So that will be fun to see. Evan, do you have any questions you want to ask? Do you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, I got a few questions. So first of all, I know you have a YouTube channel. Do you want to plug that to our viewers for a second?
Yeah, K Miller Films. That's where most of my documentaries are in K Miller Films.
That's awesome. So I see, obviously, the Reds fan. Obviously, you showed that. I have one a little. I want to ask one question about kind of your career, but one a little off topic. We had a Reds fan a while back on, and I didn't ask her this question, but I'm going to ask you. So that announcer you had a couple years ago. This was back in 2020. Who got fired for saying a supposed thing. You were talking, it kind of reminded me of this because you were talking about things you weren't supposed to say. Well, you guys had an announcer who said something he wasn't supposed to say about Kansas City. We'll just leave it at that. On air. What kind of went through your head when you heard all that go down?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it was surprising that it went out because I've been in those situations around people when you're coming back on live TV, right? And the conversations that go on in between innings can be interesting. And sometimes they can get a little too interesting. And sometimes they can get, not very nice. you've got to know when to, not say it. I'm not excusing him at all for what he said. It was absolutely horrid and it was absolutely the wrong thing to say. But you've got to know, like, you're on television, hot mics are going to happen, and you've got to know when to be quiet. And if you want to talk with your buddies about that, that's your business. I don't approve of it. Absolutely don't. But you got to understand how television works. And he should have known better than that. But yeah, it was shocking. Like, it was shocking that it happened. But it's surprising that it doesn't happen more often. Like an NFL, right? I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often than it does. Basketball, not just baseball, just sports casting in general, because it's such a fluid situation. So yeah, that was an interesting moment. Of course, it made national news for all the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah, made national.
Yeah.
And because again, it'd be interesting if you said one word, like if you said the F word, okay, you probably get taken off, but you don't get, but the way he said what he said again is there's no way around it. And I don't understand his thinking with that either.
Yeah. You're not coming back from that. Once it was said, you're not coming back. It's over. And
that's who everyone associates with you. But anyways, I wanted to ask you one more a little bit like towards your career. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Dodger films. That's what I immediately kind of thought of when I thought of your profession. They're like hit legendary, like what they do with the work. I guess could you kind of compare and contrast what you do to maybe what I guess I don't know if you've seen them, but like kind of the work they do. Yeah.
Well, I'm so lucky because I get to working for the Reds and doing the films. So, for instance, in 2009, we did this Crosley Field film for the Reds home stadium back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. You get to do that film, and I got to have free creative reign for that film, and I got to do things on that film that were kind of different for a documentary. There was no narrator. The stadium told the story, so I got to play around in the sandbox of that, and it got to be seen by thousands and thousands of people that came in the Reds Hall of Fame. So it's such a unique job because not every baseball team has a Hall of Fame. Not every baseball team has a theater that seats 120, 130 people. It's such a unique thing I get to create these films. So when people, not just Reds fans, but fans that come in to the park that are visiting, fans, they get to see my work. So I've kind of parlayed that into doing other things for other teams and other corporations because they know me from my work at the Reds Hall of Fame, or a kiosk or an instructional video or whatever. It's so unique because, like I said, not every team has that. But I'm also able, that's my day job, right? I'm also be able to do the things I want to do. So my personal baseball films, my personal historical films, mostly history is what I do documentary wise. I get to take the money I make doing that. Once the bills are paid, I get to make these passion projects that I have. So it's I have such a unique job. And like what you're saying with the Dodgers, it's a unique situation to where some teams, I think in the future, you're going to start to see more of that. MLB is going to have a broader, broader scope of technology as we start to watch games on our phones and things are just kind of moving at such a fast pace. We're going to need more filmmakers. So I'm just lucky. I'm lucky that I started when it was, we were still editing on VCR tapes, right? Back in the day, I got to kind of go through and see how it's grown. So it's just fantastic. But yeah, that's a good comparison with the Dodger films. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think this is just a point, but I think it's interesting. You kind of talk about the history. Like baseball is such a historic sport with all the records and all that, and it's really awesome to see that you just get to, you get to capture that. Yeah.
Right. I love it. Then there's so much, and that's the thing about the Reds. They've been around since 1869. Well, the Red Stockings, 1869. The current Reds started in 1882. So you kind of got that unbelievable tradition, and you get to go back and play in that sandbox for so many years. Where other teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, they don't have that. The Colorado Rockies, they're too new. They don't have that history. So growing up in this area in Cincinnati and northern Kentucky, I'm just so lucky. So lucky.
Yeah, man. So Ham, we appreciate you coming on, and we hope to talk to you again in the future, man. Thanks for
Absolutely.
coming on. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. You guys do a great job. I've watched your shows. Keep up the good work. You really are. You're doing a great job.